The return of the literary festival brought nearly 20 international authors to the Rock. They spoke at venues including the Garrison Library, the Convent and City Hall, with some also giving talks and workshops in schools and the college. They explored a wide range of subjects, from cutting-edge science to the lessons of history and the intricacies of politics.
So I was here today to talk about, I suppose, the nitty-gritty life of a politician and what I think is right and wrong with the political system in the United Kingdom and actually around the world, and try and open it up so that it feels like ordinary people can be involved in politics and feel less cynical about it.
Well, it's mainly about my books. I wrote 4 volumes of memoirs before turning to fiction, and now my second thriller, One of Our Ministers is Missing, was the main topic of conversation. But as usual, as I was a former politician, my time in politics came up as well. There's a lot happening in politics in Britain at the moment and in the world. So inevitably there were some questions on that as well.
So I'm a vaccinologist or a vaccine developer, and in early 2020 my colleague Sarah Gilbert came to me in Oxford and said there's a new pandemic about to hit the world. Should we start preparing to make a vaccine against what now we call COVID-19? And so the story that I tell today and the book is really about how we in Oxford did those first stages, a bit of the history of who we are and the experiences that we have in making vaccines prior to 2020, to put it into a bit of context, and then the story of us and our lives and how we responded to the global threat and ended up making a vaccine that was licensed by the end of 2020, a record for us in vaccine development timescales, and went on to make billions of doses that saved millions of lives around the world.
Now, I was talking about my book, The War of Nerves, which is a history of the Cold War, but it's not just a sort of conventional history, it's a psychological history of the Cold War, about why people did the things they did, why people did some of the sort of seemingly crazy and dangerous, why they took the sort of gambles that they did, and how the world was brought to the brink of confrontation. And I wrote the book before Putin invaded Ukraine, but it's now become even more relevant because we're almost back into that sort of Cold War situation.
I was talking in discussion with Susie Fay about how Roman emperors have been represented not just in the ancient world but right up to now. So cartoons of modern politicians dressed up as Romans, Renaissance painting, and the question was, why are we still so interested and why do we want to represent Roman emperors to ourselves 2,000 years on?
The festival was not without problems, as an error led to the majority of books not arriving in Gibraltar in time to be sold at the events. The books have now arrived. Those who placed their orders at the festival will be contacted shortly to collect them. And even if you missed the talks themselves, you can still browse the titles on offer. The bookshop will be open from 10 to 5 tomorrow and Wednesday at the Garrison Library.